Do you know the story of the Kenyan who was born by a mother who was deaf and dumb, and never knew his father, but today is a multi-billionaire? Do you know that story? And here's the clincher. He did not make his money from politics, like the vast majority of rich people in Kenya today. In fact, he does not even operate from Nairobi. Oh yes. Now I'll come to that story towards the end of this video. But first things first. If you can guess who this Kenyan is, before listening to the rest of my video, then hongera, you know about your country. Hats off to you. Anyway, one of the saddest things about our country, Kenya, is that every stinking wealthy person, every very rich family in Kenya has made their money from politics. They were poor before they went into politics, and then they grew very wealthy after entering politics. Now, what is very sad about that is that what role models do our young people have? And that is why more and more people are going into politics to make money. It's as simple as that. And this is precisely why individuals like the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, William Samoei Ruto, scoff back when people say that he has made his wealth from corruption. He has not been able to verbalize this because he can't dare. But you can see it from the expression on his face. What the expression on his face is saying is, let he who has not made money from corruption throw the first stone. Which brings us to a very critical question. Which prominent politician that maybe we're considering for the presidency in 2022, or whom we think can save Kenya, has not made their money from corruption? Or even to make it simpler, let us zero in on the current political class. Name me one person who has not made money from corruption, who has not made money from politics, because making money from politics is really making money from corruption. Just give me one name. Just one. I don't want two. I want one. I can hear whispers of one name, Kalonzo Musyoka. He has not been linked to any major corruption scandal, etc., etc. Really? Well, I'm sorry, that's not factual. Because before Mr. Kalonzo Musyoka, the former Vice President of Kenya, entered politics, he was poor, and that's a fact. Bottom line, he has made his money from politics. I came across a very interesting video the other day, about expensive things that Kalonzo Musyoka owns, and that should open your eyes. I've put a link to that video, in the description area of this particular video. Just take a look at it and change your mind. Actually, in my search, because we did a very serious search in the entire government structure of today, we're able to find only one name. And that name is CS Musheru. Joseph Wakaba Musheru, the CS for ICT. He made his money by being a founder of a company called Wananchi Online, in 1999. Nothing to do with politics. Indeed, his co-founder is a very interesting lady, a lady who Kenyans should talk more about, called Njeri Rionge. Njeri Rionge is a great Kenyan entrepreneur. She has started very many businesses. She's what people call a serial entrepreneur. In sharp contrast to being a serial murderer or a serial killer, she's a serial entrepreneur. I like that phrase. That's exactly what she is. Now, simple test. Can you be able to trace the wealth of any other prominent Kenyan in the way we have traced CS Musheru's wealth? Impossible. Meaning that if you stand and you are corrupt in Kenya and you tell others, let he who is not corrupt throw the first stone, everybody will walk away. That's really what it is. Bottom line, if we're really serious about wanting a new Kenya, then there's no other alternative. There's only one option we have. Everybody must go home. Not just DP Ruto. every single prominent politician today, even your favorite politician, the one who makes you have goose pimples because they come from your tribe, all of them must go home. And then we start afresh, with chapter 6 of our constitution, firmly, in front of our eyes, and the first thing on top of our table. For those who have no idea what chapter 6 is all about, let me just put it this way. It is the clause, the moral clause on leadership qualifications for leaders in Kenya. Now I can hear people saying, you need experience, you cannot run government without experience. Let me ask you a simple question. The founders of the nation called Kenya, where did they get the experience to start governing a brand new country? And believe you me, it is very difficult to start a nation. It is much easier to take over a nation that has been running and to take it in a different course or direction. So where did those guys get the experience? Just think about it. If we Kenyans don't want to be classified as clinically insane, mad people, then there's no other way we can do it. Yes, you know the definition of mad people. People who do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Anyway, enough ranting. Now, one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is what is happening in a topic that may be boring to most of us, but is critical in understanding where Kenya is right now, the real estate industry. Now, in case you didn't know, the real estate industry in Kenya is passing through a crisis that is unprecedented in the long history of our country. Very prominent real estate magnates, people who are very prosperous, very happy, singing and dancing all the way to the bank, just the other day, are being auctioned. And everybody says, so what? It's the economy. But I want you to look at it from another completely different angle. The truth of the matter is that the real estate industry has been fueled and has been kept running and has been booming on money from, wait for this one, from corruption. Corrupt people are the ones who buy houses for cash. Corrupt people are the ones who take loans, to buy houses, where you have to put down a hefty deposit. Those are mostly, not all of them, mostly corrupt people. The ones who take loans. But a lot of these houses have been purchased for cash. And this cash is public property. Now, many people are looking down on the current fight against corruption. But the truth is, it has had its impact. Just ask the people in the real estate industry. But the super interesting thing here is that it has created a very dangerous situation for a country called Kenya. And what dangerous situation is this I'm talking about? It has created broke politicians. Our political class has been very comfortable, from making money from corrupt deals. But in between these big corrupt deals, they've been earning their bread and butter money, from high-end apartment rentals. They own apartments, they rent them out, 100,000, 120,000, etc., etc. But now, these apartments are empty. There are no people moving into them. In fact, there are some very interesting cases unfolding in places like Lavington and other leafy suburbs in Kenya, whereby you find a house that had a monthly rental of 120,000 just the other day has been reduced to about 60,000. And even at 60,000, they're still empty. Now, it's very important to note the consequences of this particular state of affairs. It means that the politicians with a big, huge war chest of funds are king. They can do virtually anything as long as they have money, enough money. They can buy these politicians very easily because at the moment they're desperate. There's no money coming in from corruption. That has been cut down tremendously, whatever Kenyans say about the fight against corruption. And there's no money from the investments. The apartments that they put up for rental. And they need to maintain their lifestyles. They need to keep on fueling their V8s, which consume a lot of fuel. And so, any politician with a lot of money, a huge war chest that they've built over the last couple of years or decades, is at a huge advantage. They can literally do anything. Let me just leave it at that. Yeah, jijazie. Now, from a recent survey we did, the vast majority of people on this channel who are subscribers come to this channel to learn something they didn't know. And so I pledge that I'll always try my best to give you information that you don't have. Yeah, to give you knowledge that you don't have. Yeah. And this story, amazing story of a Kenyan, yeah, who was born by a mother who was deaf and dumb, is very instructive. It has many lessons for us. Now, I don't know what name you guessed. Yeah, when I posed the question, I gave you a few clues and asked you whether you know this Kenyan. Yeah, but here's the answer. His name is Ibrahim Ambwere. Now, what I find very fascinating is a story I saw recently in the media, yeah, about a Kenyan commenting on Ambwere's wealth. And this is what they said. This story of Ambwere cannot be true. Yeah, people don't make money like that. There's no way you can make money from scratch. This is what really they were saying. There must be some dirty deals he got involved with. There must be some politicians he talked to give him deals and breaks for him to become this wealthy. There's no way he would have made all this wealth, yeah, on his own without dirty deals. Now that view makes me very sad. And unfortunately, it is the view of the vast majority of Kenyans. Yeah, as I told you, they don't have a role model. So how can you think in a different way and you don't have any role models around you? We don't have any Bill Gates or Steve Jobs who are operating in Kenya. We don't. All the rich people we see, they have made their money through politics or corruption or both. So how do you expect most Kenyans to believe this story? Yeah, you don't. Yeah, this particular view or this reaction is expected. Anyway, let us go to the amazing story of this great Kenyan. Ibrahim Ambwere was born in 1936 in Maragoli, in a place called Chavakali. He was born in a polygamous homestead, yeah, which is typical in that area of Kenya. Yeah, his dad had many wives. But Ambwere's mother was deaf and dumb. She couldn't speak, she couldn't hear. And shortly after Ambwere was born, when he was about 2 years old, his father left, yeah, to go and fight in the Second World War. He never returned, yeah, meaning that he was a casualty of war, like so many others. But to make matters worse, at the age of 8 years old, Ambwere's mother died. So he was on his own. No father, no mother. And so he started working on people's farms to fend for himself and his other siblings. And when he was 10 years old, he followed some grown-ups, yeah, as they went all the way to a place called Molo, to a pyrethrum farm, yeah, where at that time it was rumored people were being paid very well, yeah, to harvest the pyrethrum. But unfortunately, he had an allergy, yeah, to the pyrethrum. So he didn't even last one day at work, yeah, because it caused him to remove tears, mucus. It caused his eyes to, it was serious. So he didn't even last one day. He couldn't work on that job. And so the young Ambwere had to make do, yeah, working for a mason, sweeping, yeah, kufagia, kazi ya kufagia. And he did this job for 10 long years to sustain himself and his siblings. Now, this mason he worked for was a foreigner. So after about 10 years, he said, I have to leave the country. So now you no longer have a job. But then as a parting gift, yeah, he gave the young Ambwere a toolbox. And not a brand new toolbox, an old, very much overused toolbox. Now a mason, yeah, deals with putting up houses and maintaining them. Yeah, they deal with stone mostly. Yeah, so you can imagine the kind of tools that were in that toolbox. And over these 10 years, Ambwere had learned, even as he swept the premises, he learned a bit about what was happening around him, yeah, how the masons were working, and how to use those tools. Now, there's a very important lesson here. Wherever life has thrown you, learn as much as you can. Let me just tell you a quick story aside here. Yeah, I once worked in an office where the office cleaner, this was a company that published a monthly business magazine, and I was the editor. Now, I quickly noticed that this office cleaner was very intelligent. Yeah, he didn't have much formal education, yeah, but he was extremely intelligent. But he had one problem. He was always complaining about how he came from a poor family, his relatives are poor, his extended relatives are poor, everybody is poor. And therefore he was saying his life is doomed. Yeah, he has accepted to be a poor man, always. And I used to publish a lot of inspirational stories in this business magazine. And so he would challenge me. He would tell me, Chris, you're publishing fiction. These things don't happen in Africa. They don't happen in Kenya. They can only happen in America. So if anybody in Kenya tells you they started from scratch, they're lying. There's something they did. They went to a witch doctor. They murdered somebody in order to make money. And all I could do was to pity this young man. Yeah, I was also young in those days, by the way. This fellow young man. And then one day, I used to do a lot of reading in those days. I used to read books, every kind of book I could get my hand on, and especially business books. I read a book by a man called Tom Peters. And the business magazine was facing financial problems. And therefore I decided to try and implement some of the ideas I read in that book in the business. I didn't own the business. I was employed. But fortunately, I was not short-sighted. Yeah, I knew that if the company continued operating in losses, we would all be out in the streets very soon. We would have no job. So I took it upon myself, and I convinced the owners that we implement some of the ideas there. And one of the ideas is that everybody in a company should be a salesperson. And although I was an editor, I learned for the first time in my life how to sell. It's terrifying, but I forced myself, I put in the effort, and I learned how to sell advertising. But the other people in that small business were not interested. They were also terrified and they didn't want to do anything. And so I realized the best way to inspire them is to get the most negative, pessimist in the company to sell advertising. So I started talking to this office cleaner. To cut a long story short, the office cleaner learned how to sell advertising and started making some very good money for himself. Money that he had never seen in his entire life. We paid people who sold advertising on commission, irrespective of what salary they earned. And that business magazine became such a big success that it expanded outside Kenya, to Tanzania, Uganda, Malawi, etc. But the point of my story is that wherever life has thrown you, go out of your way to learn everything you can about what is happening around you. What does that company do? Are there any skills you can gain? Etc., etc. Anyway, back to the Ambwere story. So he was given a toolbox as a gift. And this toolbox was the foundation of Ambwere's huge empire. The foundation that made him to what he is today, a multi-billionaire. With just 38 shillings and this old toolbox that he had been gifted, he started a carpentry workshop. But he didn't make money overnight. He wasn't rich in 2 years or 5 years. No. He slogged. And this is one of the lessons Kenyans have never learned. Quick money is a mirage. Quick money has to be corruption money. Anyway, Ambwere got his first big break in 1963 when Kaimosi Hospital gave him a contract to make hospital beds. And as a sweeper, Ambwere had learned how to construct, because he worked for a mason, how to put up buildings. And so, it was a no-brainer for him. The huge windfall he suddenly earned from this contract of making beds for Kaimosi Hospital, he put into construction. Even as he continued with his carpentry business. And today, Bwana Ambwere owns buildings in Kisumu, Kakamega, Mbale, all over the place, even in Nairobi. Now, years ago, I personally met Ambwere without knowing who he was. You see, I went to a function of the Standard Bank. And during this function, they introduced Ambwere. They said, this is one of our best customers. And he has a few words to say. And therefore, he started giving tips. And people were listening eagerly. The long and short of his pep talk, which I still remember, it must have been over 20 years ago. The long and short of his pep talk was that you invest more money then you consume. And so if you earn 100 shillings, 20 shillings is what you'll eat. Yeah, it's what you'll use for your upkeep. The other 80 shillings, you reinvest in something. Now, I must confess at the time, I was wondering what was the fuss about this man who was very poorly dressed. Yeah, he had a suit that didn't fit him very well. And he looked like somebody's father. But people were listening keenly, so I wondered what it was. And I heard somebody behind me whispering, this man is very rich. And so I started listening more keenly. Yeah, it's good to admit. Now, in the 80s, Ambwere burst into national limelight. There was a crisis where teachers had not been paid. Yeah, teachers required, or rather the cash required to pay teachers was 48 million Kenya shillings, which was an absolute fortune, in the mid-80s. Now, for those who are very young in 1980, or not even born, let me fill you in. In the 80s, the government had a very serious cash crisis. And the teachers in Western Kenya had not been paid. So Ambwere offered to pay 48 million. Yeah, of course, it was going to be refunded by the government when they got funds. But Ambwere stepped in as an emergency solution, to help the suffering teachers. Now, he was not taken up on his offer, but this drew attention to him, especially from the government, which started investigating him because they realized, wow, this is a man who can raise 48 million and we don't even know him. He's not even in politics. This is a threat to national security. Now, trust me, even in those days, when the government investigates you or decides to poke into your personal finances, it's not fun. And so, although Ambwere finally weathered the storm, because no coin of his had been earned from corruption, therefore the government couldn't find anything to pin him down on, and he paid his taxes. But unfortunately, all this took a toll on his health, and he landed in hospital. Diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., etc. These diseases have names, but we all know that they're triggered, by pressure and emotions, in a human being. And so for over 3 years, Bwana Ambwere was hospitalized at Nairobi Hospital. And I'm sure many people thought he was going to die. But God, of course, had different ideas. And finally, in 1992, he emerged from hospital. Now, Ambwere said something very interesting shortly after he had been discharged from hospital. He said he found his businesses all in ruins. He had to start all over again from scratch. Now, there's an important point I want to emphasize here, something which most of us are not aware of. There should always be a difference between your investments and your business. So what had collapsed was not Ambwere's investments. All the buildings were still there. All the rental income was still coming in. What had collapsed were his businesses. The generation of daily income. And remember, he had been admitted to the Nairobi hospital for over 3 years. What kind of bill do you think he clocked up? And he didn't have any fundraiser when he came out. The bill was paid. And he went and rebuilt from scratch his businesses, not his investments. That's a very important lesson for all of us to learn. Because in Kenya today, if a business collapses, the person also collapses. He has no investments. Or his investments are so small, that when his business is affected, he's done. And remember, the man who has all this wisdom that we're talking about is illiterate. He never went to school. Actually in the 1970s, he actually employed a teacher. Somebody to teach him how to read and write and how to speak English. His name was Lawrence Kisame. And after Lawrence Kisame had finished his work, Ambwere could speak English. He could read and write. And Ambwere gifted him with a house, for his thank you. That's apart from his salary, what he was being paid for, to do this work. Anyway, my point is, all this wisdom that built the Ambwere empire came from an illiterate man. Illiterate. Don't even talk about a university degree. This should encourage all those Kenyans listening to this video who are complaining all the time. I don't have a university degree, therefore I'm useless. Just look at Ambwere's life. Or you're complaining, I just finished primary school, I'm useless. Just look at Ambwere's life and change your mind. Very fascinating about this Kenyan billionaire. Yeah, it reminds me of an American billionaire called Warren Buffett. Unless somebody tells you these people have money, or that is Ambwere and he has money, you wouldn't know. Ambwere doesn't own a V8. In fact, he travels around a lot in a pickup, a double cabin pickup. Yeah, because it's practical for him. Yeah, maybe he goes to a construction site, finds a problem. He has some space at the back of his truck to put in something. Yeah, maybe to take for repair, etc., etc. And the man is going to be 83 years old this year, and he's still working. My fellow Kenyan, my fellow African, stop complaining, fold up your sleeves and get to work, and learn from the wisdom of those who have come before us, like Bwana Ibrahim Ambwere. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.